As the author of the minutes, I can go back and check my notes. I don't dispute that Mr. Weed made comments. It was nothing intentional on my part to leave anything off.
Okay,
It may have just been an oversight,
okay, all right.
which I apologize for, and I can correct. I think the best course of action would be for me to modify the minutes and reflect the changes and then put them forth for approval. at the
I
next
wish you
meeting.
good luck to summarize this and what you.
There's been stickier situations before. It's not always easy or fun, but I'm confident I'll be able to.
Okay, I am too. That's all.
I just got one, the one that you just handed out, I was absent for that closed section, the last meeting.
Okay, I can make that change. I'll make a similar. Those would come back to the next meeting with the change.
Any other comments regarding the minutes?
Only that I appreciate the input. I'm not enthused about having 3 corrections to make. Usually I strive to do better than that. But thanks for your watchfulness so that we can get a good permanent record for the future.
Questions or comments regarding payment of bills for $190,986.84? Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda with the corrections that have been brought forth.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Rodine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Subcommittee reports and project updates. First is row updates.
All right, so Mr. Freeman apologized that he could not be here tonight. He's not feeling well, so he gave this 2-page report. It's 45 and 46 of the packet here. He kind of goes over the different projects that are going on that Rowe has been involved in. One of the questions that I got feedback based on that is the Phase 3 trail project. And so they are working, Rowe is working to be able to submit everything to the DNR for reimbursement appropriately and then extend that remaining amount of the $200,000 for the grant. So they'll be working to be able to do that between now and the end of the month. And then I know I don't want to take your thunder away, Bill, about the then applying that design engineering to actual construction of the project, and they're going to get a plan together to be able to move forward with the construction of that Phase 3 bike path. So when we have more information on that, I'll be bringing it to the board.
Form-based code.
All right, so form-based code is scheduled for Tuesday, October 3rd, 3 p.m. at the Warrior Pavilion. And again, this will be John Iacangeli with Beckett and Rader, and he will be presenting. This is all based on the 2 kind of public engagement sessions that we've had, as well as the Downtown Summit. So during the Downtown Summit, we got a plethora of information from 6 different maps where the participants kind of played planner with the downtown. He's going to be incorporating that information, coming back with a form-based code update and how we're going to move forward with that. The Economic Improvement Committee established interviews for the Economic Improvement Director position, and that is going to happen on Saturday, the 5th, and that will be here at the library starting at 10 a.m. So we will be going through, ranking the different applicants. I'm very excited about the qualified individuals that we have applying for the job, and we will be doing interviews, not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
Anybody have any other project updates?
I just have one question on the form-based code update. You mentioned the 3rd of October?
Eighth,
Here it
I'm
says
sorry, the
the
8th. I'm sorry, yeah, the 8th. That is
The
correct.
8th?
Tuesday, the 8th.
I actually do have one that just occurred to me. That the policy subcommittee met for the first time based on the action that the board took to form it. And just pretty much met to go over the general process that we'll follow. First work was on working on a policy about how we create policies, which seems redundant, but hopefully will prove helpful to the township going forward. And then we're going to try and look at the order or priority of existing policies to work on to either update, correct, do away with, analyze and make better. So I think we meet again in early October, first week of October sometime.
Anybody have anything else?
Well, I would just like to mention, Mr. Schaefer noted stealing my thunder. I didn't really have any thunder, it's just more of a rumble, I guess, but I wanted to report on the Phase 3 of the bike path, and that was that Rowe has completed the final construction plans for that, and that is a requirement to move forward with our funding through the various grant agencies, primarily the TAP grant, the MNTRF funds, and the FLAP grants. And they all sort of play on one another. I believe the TAP grant, we can, after the 1st of October is when the funds become available again for the next fiscal year. And my concern was with Rowe, I believe they're going to be helping us with formulating those grants. So right now, the estimated cost is about a little over, just over $2 million for the Phase 3, which is about 6.2 miles. And if we can get a response from the Forest Service on the clearing of the trees along that path, there's budgeted for over $300,000 for that tree clearing. And sometimes the Forest Service will take over that project and sell that timber, have loggers come in. And so that could be possibly an expense that we wouldn't have on the project, which would be nice. But right now, they're leaving it in the total cost because the Forest Service hasn't come forward yet. So that's progress on the Phase 3 bike path to date, and hopefully things will be moving smoothly. Phase 1, which is an ensemble from Mill Street out to the high school, the bids came in, and I'm happy to report it was awarded to a local contractor, John Henry, and they should be beginning construction on that yet this fall. And then there'll be some work that will be done. It's actually easier to do during the winter months, some of the wet work that they have to do. So that part of the project is moving forward. So that's where our bike path stands right now. Thank you.
All right, then on to supervisor's report. The superintendent evaluations are due in October. The evaluation forms have been provided to the board on 19 September and also within the packet. Please, if you could have your completed evaluations to me or the township secretary no later than 4 p.m. on the 8th of October. The evaluation results I'll have presented at the 14 October board meeting. Any questions about that? All right, then on to formation of the cemetery committee.
All right, so at the previous township board meeting on the 9th of September, there was discussion concerning creating a cemetery committee. The purpose of the cemetery committee would be to evaluate the current cemetery operations, make recommendations to implement operational improvements, and provide long-term solutions to gain program efficiencies. The cemetery committee would also work with Oscoda Township to provide long-term solutions to the intergovernmental cemetery agreement. Members of the cemetery committee would also be encouraged to attend MTA's two-part cemetery management training from the e-learning library. The course information is contained within your packet, and your packet also contains the most recent newsletter from the Michigan Association of Municipal Cemeteries.
Any comments?
How many members committee is this gonna consist of? 3, 5, 2?
3 is usually a good number for a subcommittee.
So would it make sense for the clerk and Bill Hamlin and Dave to be on that committee? Or does it need to be a third board member?
Doesn't have to be a third board member.
I should note too, in our discussions to this point, they've been kind of brief at our work sessions on this topic, and some individuals are aware, but I've been working on looking at other cemetery ordinances, other municipality cemetery ordinances, spoken with the attorney a couple times regarding the need for one. So some of that work has been started, at least, so, and being worked on.
Any other comments or volunteers?
I would be willing to work on the committee. I would need to get the training. I don't know a lot about running a cemetery, I can tell you. Or writing a contract for running a cemetery, but I believe these MTA training sessions are pretty good for that, is my understanding, so. I'd be willing to work on that if no other members wanted to do that.
Right.
If we're going to create one, I think it's fitting that I would be involved, since I have a part, my office is a part in administration for the cemetery, if the board decides to create a committee. So, and I'm okay with participating in that. I'm involved anyways, so.
I would agree, John, if you've done that much work already on reviewing other ordinances, that would be helpful. So perhaps it should be a 5-member subcommittee.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most impactful work a committee could do, or the most value a committee could bring to this topic, would be the future of the cemetery, the space limitations that it has. How is the cemetery going to exist in the future with space being limited? The ordinance and a contract, I think, could be handled outside a subcommittee. If one gets created, I suppose they could take on that issue and tackle that as well. I don't think it's needed for those issues. Again, the most value I see it having is how are we going to, what's the strategy for a cemetery going forward, given the space issues? Now, the whole board can consider that, or a committee, but.
Has anybody reached out to Bill Hamlin to see if he would be interested on the committee, since he is the sexton for the cemetery?
I think Bill would be more than willing to talk to us and be involved in it. Contracts and ordinances, you know.
Right, well, contracts, isn't that what we have an attorney for?
Yeah, and ordinances, I think John's correct. Those are some of the more technical issues. It's, you know, what's the plan for the cemetery, and
Right.
how are we going to make this work in perpetuity?
I would think the function of the subcommittee would be to formulate our long-term plan for the cemetery and then sort of have an outline for the ordinance of things that where the current ordinance needs to be updated, and then send that information on to the attorney to actually draft the actual ordinance. I don't think the subcommittee, we've taken that on in the planning subcommittee, which I've been involved in, and there's an awful lot of time that is involved when you have to draft an ordinance. And then we do send it to the attorney, and oftentimes he makes suggestions, and then we have to revise what we sent originally. So there's a lot of time involved with that. I think it would be suitable for the subcommittee to formulate our plan going forward, and then look at the ordinance that we have, make some revisions to that, what we think should be changed, and then allow the attorney to just actually draft the ordinance. I think would be time better spent.
I have just a question, and I have honestly no opinion. But would it be best to do what we appear to be doing tonight, to form a committee and come up with our own proposals and opinions, and then go to Ensemble and say, this is what we think? Or should we engage Ensemble from the get-go right away, and maybe make the committee 5 or 6 and ask them for some? I don't know, but whatever the board thinks. But sometimes if we come up with some opinions about any topic, and then we go to Ensemble, it just seems like we're trying to lead them by the nose. It can get a little abrasive. I don't know. I don't have an opinion, like I said. I'm too close to the subject. That's an attempt at humor, okay? You laugh now.
So we have future issues that are going to occur in the next 10 to 50 years or longer with our cemetery. Space utilization, no longer providing deeds, making sure the ordinance is written for the long term and gets adjusted as times change. There's training available. We are solely responsible for that cemetery. So as of right now, for volunteers for the committee, I have Mr. Palmer, Mr. Nordine, and a voluntold of Mr. Hamlin.
And Dave.
Volunteering or voluntolding?
Yeah, I gotta do the budget for the thing, so I should probably be involved.
I think if you get formed, you get trained, and if you feel that Asabo have some part within the committee, then let's bring them in for that. Doesn't matter to me either way, but
Yeah.
I think that the people who are going to be on this committee need to get some education first on cemetery management, and then can make some determinations.
Like I said, I don't have a strong opinion either way, but I just would like the board to consider this other thing where Ensemble is part of it from square one, instead of us going to them and saying, this is what we want, or what we've decided, or what we recommend. I don't know. Sometimes there's a bit of a adversary feeling that I would like to avoid. So
My thought would be to not include Ensemble on the committee, but that we would form the documents and the contracts and things, and then before we put it into place, send it to Ensemble for review. If they had comments, they would bring those back to us. Since we're solely responsible for the cemetery, I don't see the point of having a member from Ensemble. Not that I have a problem with that. If the rest of the board thinks that's appropriate, then that's fine. I don't think it's like we're trying to hide anything or pull anything over on them. But I think it's our responsibility. It's our cemetery. It's going to be our responsibility for a long time. we need to formulate a plan that works best for Oscoda Township and the residents and taxpayers of the township. So my thought would be, let's put a plan together, contracts, ordinance, everything that needs to be done. Before we pass it, send it off to Oscoda for review. If they have comments, we take in those comments, make whatever changes or considerations, and then move forward with it.
And the meetings are public, so Osable's
Meetings
welcome
are
to be there.
public, yeah, they're not private.
I think there's some merit in what you just said, but I don't want the board to forget that 2 weeks ago, one of the items on our agenda was, I think, some $9,000 that we had to pay to Osable that we owed them for the last 3. So the cemetery being our cemetery and our responsibility isn't quite that way in my mind. They obviously have some skin in the game. But I sound like I'm advocating the other way, and I'm not. If we have a dominant position in this, make the committee 3 of us and 2 of them, 3-2 or something like that. Maybe that would be an insult. Maybe I'd be just making them mad. I don't know. I'll shut up.
Any other thoughts? I make a motion, we create an Oscoda Township Cemetery Subcommittee consisting of Mr. Palmer, Mr. Nordine, Mr. Hamlin, and Mr. Schaefer.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Increased appropriations for the general fund.
All right, so Rowe's final deliverables for the Iosco Exploration Trail Phase 3 design engineering were sent out to the board last Thursday, the 19th. And the link will last 3 weeks until Thursday, the October 3rd. We will have electronic copies stored on our network, but that's in that email. That link will last till the 3rd of October. So your packet contains an invoice from Rowe concerning the Iosco Exploration Trail totaling $35,576.50 to be paid out of General Fund 101-751 for Parks and Recs, 880.572. The invoice associated with the Township Board's approval of Rowe's $130,950 for the final design engineering of the IET Phase 3 was during the April 22nd meeting. This was a TAP grant funded initiative, not originally incorporated into the 2019 general fund appropriations. The last Township Board meeting, it was mentioned that this invoice from Rowe was still in the process of being finalized. In order to pay Rowe, the invoices totaling the $35,576.50, I'm requesting the Township Board consider increasing 2019 General Fund 101-751 for Parks and Recs appropriations by $35,576.50 from $279,078 up to $314,655. This request would increase 2019 total general fund appropriations from $3,321,743 up to $3,357,320. Please note that if approved, the invoice would bring the total project up to $103,544.88. Your packet also contains an email stating that Rowe has yet to be invoiced for the archaeological services associated for that project. So that's the difference in the gap between the $103,000 and the $130,000. We're still waiting on that invoice. Unfortunately, we have to get everything to the DNR for reimbursement by the end of the month. So we're kind of pressing Rowe to press the archaeological services to get us this invoice to include within the reimbursement.
Comments? there a motion?
I'll make a motion to increase appropriations for the 2019 General Fund Parks and Recreation appropriations by $35,576.50.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. F&V request for water meter pits.
All right, so the board has this revised that was sent out from Doug based on our conversation at the Friday work session. So you'll see now a revised quote from Corin, Maine, for $79,269.96. So this is $1,201.06 less than the previously provided quote. And the difference is now this is 132 meter pits and assemblies versus the previous one that had 134 meter pits and assemblies. So what this is the revised quote for the meter pits, and then there is also a invoice in there for Neptune water meters associated with Phase 2 of the water main extension. So F&V has ensured that Corin, Maine, based on this invoice, will honor the previously quoted meter pits back from February of 2019. As previously discussed with the board, the lead time on meter pits can range from 4 to 6 weeks as far as the time between the order date and the delivery date. So the township opened bids for Phase 2 of the water main extension on Tuesday, the 29th of October. And that's slightly over 5 weeks from today. So approval of the $98,013.96 from the previously quoted $99,215.02 would encompass the 132 meter pits instead of the 134 meter pits, and that is to be paid from the Water Fund 591-000-974.000 capital improvement / outlay. And this purchase requires Township Board approval. Again, for $98,013.96.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the $98,013.96 for the 132 meter pits and meters paid from the water fund.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. F&V request for water hydrants and parts.
All right, so your packet contains bid proposals from Corin, Maine, and those three proposals total $13,017.02. And this is associated with hydrant replacements and parts to be paid out of the Water Fund 591-000-974.000 capital improvement / outlay. So F&V performs routine hydrant flushing. All 5 of the hydrants detailed for the $9,890.10 are to replace hydrants on the former base that are well past their useful lives. The board will note that the CIP includes $40,000 for hydrant replacements on an annual basis. The $13,017.02 for hydrant replacement and parts require Township Board approval. So the action will be consider approving the $13,017.02 to be paid out of the Water Fund.
Comments?
Are these hydrants readily available, or do we have to wait 5 or 6 weeks for those also?
They're not as bad as the, there's a lead time, 2 to 3 weeks. It's not as bad as the meter pits that are 4 to 6 weeks.
So if we approve this, they get them, they're gonna get on this before the ground freezes this year?
That is the plan.
Dave, are all of these hydrants replacements, or are any of them additions to what we now have?
No, they're replacements.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I move that we go ahead with this $13,017.02 for hydrant replacements.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Gasky. Roll call.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
I got a question first, sorry.
We're in voting now.
Okay, well, it has to do with the motion, actually. Because the action is to consider improving the increase to the general fund parks and rec appropriations.
Yeah, that's my misprint.
Okay, so,
I
okay.
didn't copy and paste correctly.
Okay, all right, just questioning. Yes,
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Sale of real property.
All right, so what I was able to provide to the board, and I'm sorry it was late this afternoon, we have been working with the township attorney and the assessor's office to be able to cobble together the appropriate legal descriptions as well as the listing of the tax parcel codes that you will see are the good part of the first 2 pages on this purchase agreement. What this represents, I count a total of 18 different parcel codes that are on Skeel Avenue, in between Skeel Avenue and F41, just north of the flag circle. It was formerly housing over there, and it is formerly the visiting officers' quarters that were demolished and taken away in the base reuse process. And so the township board is providing this purchase agreement as far as the combination of all those different parcels that are currently listed separately into a combined sale for $40,000. And this would be used in the purchase agreement for multi-family housing. So this is a combination of parcels that are 8.376 acres.
Comments?
And this is in response to a counteroffer that we sent, that we put in?
This is the counteroffer.
Right, okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we submit the counter offer as presented.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Resolution and ordinances. We have resolution 2019-28, support for the Michigan Trail Town designation.
All right, so this is an initiative by the Convention and Visitors Bureau associated with the Trail Town designation. Mr. Palmer was appointed to the board to serve on this committee for the Trail Town designation. And what this does is this is formal support. Resolution 2019-28 is formalizing the support of the board for the CVB to use its hired consultants to get recognized as a trail town, as a pure Michigan trail town.
Comments?
Yeah, I attended the first and only meeting that we've had so far of this committee, and the CVB is very excited about this project. And we're under a little bit of a time crunch here. They have to have our resolution and our letter of support in by the end of the week to submit for this program with the state. So I'm hoping we can pass that tonight, and Mr. Schaefer can forward that to them tomorrow or sooner, and and they can have this covered by the end of the week.
Bill, do you know if Osable has a resolution on this? Because it states in ours, Oscoda, Osable. We're taking in both townships.
Trying to think. Don't think there was a member from the Osable board.
There was, the clerk was nominated. So the clerk was, the Osable Township clerk was the one that was to be serving on the committee.
Yeah, I don't remember her being there at that meeting. But
So Osable is in support of this.
They are in support of it then, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
the only part we have control over is Oscoda having this resolution and the letter of support. And I'm hoping Osable would, I'm assuming they would do the same. And they would have to have it in by the end of the week as well.
I was getting that.
Yeah.
Should we vote on this 2 times, once as it is presented to us now with the 2 townships? In case they, are on board with it, and, or if they're not, or if they've done their own thing, then vote on one where it's just Oscoda Township. Would that settle things or complicate things?
Well, yeah, the CVB is a combined
Yes.
Osable, Oscoda.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get it throughout all the townships.
I think clearly that's the preferred way to go, but and you could, if you did the 2, you could call them in the morning and say, what do you guys think? What have you done? Because we don't seem to know right now, tonight. Not just you, any of us.
What if we just make the change that it just talks Oscoda Township and leaves out the others? Because if they're passing their own, then they've already got those names.
Yeah. Do we know they're passing their own?
Whether they are or not, if we're passing this one, that shows that Oscoda is supportive of it.
I know they are because they plagiarized some of their letter of support.
Are you talking about the whereas,
Yes.
that the second,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, the third one where it identifies? Isn't that, if you read the whole thing, isn't that just identifying everybody that's got time and efforts donated to the project? I don't know why we would have to take that out.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jamie.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2019-28.
Support. Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes, motion's passed. Under other, Lake State Railway Company letter of support.
All right, so
Do we
before,
need to approve the letter as well?
the letter I used is supporting documentation. If you look at that, it's already good to go.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure, so you can send it out.
Okay, so being through this a couple times, I messed up on the last action item under the superintendent report for the sale of real property. What we did not include in the motion is to have authorize the clerk and the supervisor to execute all documents associated with this transaction for closing. And I know this was a problem before. I don't know if we can go back and talk about that before we get into the other.
Can amend the motion.
Yes, we can. We'll have to make another motion.
I'll amend my motion then.
Let's make a new motion.
I'll make a new motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to submit the counteroffer as presented and authorize the the supervisor and the clerk to sign all the necessary documents.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, Lake State Railway.
All right. So I got an email from Mr. Sean Pengelly with the Lake State Rail Company. And he is asking us to send the letter on page 76 of the packet associated to Mr. Batory with the Federal Railroad Administration. And our letter of support is for the CRISI funding, which is the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Grant. And this would help, if awarded, would help improve rail tracks upgrades on the line between Caucaulin and Alpena. So that runs through here. So that's why he's asking for our support and all the communities between Caucaulin and Alpena to send the same letter of support.
Any comments?
Sounds like a good deal to me, so I make the motion we do send this letter as requested.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Bias. Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Resignation from employee working the treasurer's office, Lois.
So I got an email from Jamie last Wednesday, the 18th, that Lois's last day would be on September 25th, which is this Wednesday. And I am asking the board to accept Lois's resignation.
Comments? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. We accept this with regret. I think Lois is a good person, and both times she's worked for us, and I'm sorry to see her leave.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes, with regrets.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Authorize job posting for the treasurer's office seasonal employee.
So based on the previous action item with Lois's departure, the treasurer's asking for authorization to post for the seasonal employee in the treasurer's office.
Comments?
Well, I questioned Friday whether do we actually need a third person in the treasurer's office? I know we went without her for quite some time. I would like to, maybe we need to do a time study to see what we need in that office, if we need a third person.
Did Lois?
We went without her.
Yeah.
Right after Tina resigned, we posted for the job and hired somebody.
So the number is remained the same. Lois is not an additional number.
Right,
She just replaced someone else.
right.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we do, the motion asked for is to go ahead with soliciting a replacement for Lois. Is that correct? That's my motion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byers, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
No.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
No, motion's passed. Authorized travel expenditures for EIC director position.
All right, so very similar to the township superintendent position, the township has received very qualified applicants. We've had applicants from Illinois, from Texas, from Ohio, and so what I'm asking is that the board authorize the travel expenditures associated with the base IRS mileage rate as well as the per diem associated with, in line with the travel policy for the township of a $40 per day per diem. And so right now, I can't exactly tell you what that's going to be. The Economic Improvement Committee is ranking those applicants, and instead of just the top 5 or the top 6, I'm asking for the top 7. So that way, if those top 5, if somebody can't make an interview or has found another position, we have a 6th or a 7th as far as a backup to go to. So I am getting those rankings from the Economic Improvement Committee members, and we are scheduled to have those interviews on Saturday, the 5th of October, here in the library.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the travel expenses for the Economic Improvement Director interviewees and the per diem.
Particular number? 6 or 7's okay?
7,
7?
if it turns out to be 7.
Support. Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, no, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Officer Hayes' resignation.
All right, so you have a resignation letter from Officer Hayes dated today, the 23rd. And this is his resignation from both the Oscoda Township Police Department and the Oscoda Township Fire Department.
Make a motion, we approve resignation of Officer Hayes.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire.
I would like to make that with regrets.
With regrets. I appreciate the time served for anyone in a police department. That is a very difficult position to hold.
Absolutely.
Ms. McGuire support?
Correct. Roll call.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Authorization to post for police officer position.
All right, so based on the previous action item, that leaves an opening within the police department, and this would, I'm asking that the board authorize the police chief be able to post the officer position.
Comments?
As well as a fire position?
We just took on a
I know we just,
5 firefighters. I haven't been able to talk to the chief if this dips below where he's gonna need, I know he likes to take a class of them together.
Okay.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to have the chief post for a new officer position.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Schedule a Mama site selection work session.
All right, so we'd like to be able to establish a township board work session for Thursday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. And more information would be provided when that is posted. This would be in conjunction with the Airport Authority Board to be able to set the agenda. I'll be working with the airport administrator as far as what we're going to cover.
Comments?
Where will this meeting be?
Weltsy's,
Wiltsey's.
What time?
6 p.m.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a work session on October 3rd at 6 o'clock for the Mama site selection at Wiltsey's Restaurant.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Gasky.
For what it's worth, I don't expect this to change anything at all, but I won't be able to attend. I think it's still worthwhile to have the work session, but just to let everyone know, don't expect me to be there. I have a prior engagement. Hope it goes well, though.
Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, we're on to our second public comment period. A card does not need to be filled out. There's still a 4-minute time limit, and when you come to the podium, please introduce yourself. Does anybody want to speak?
I'll do one more.
They're 2 for 1 today.
Yeah, special. Last month, the Genealogy Society did a walk through the cemetery in Oscoda, and I appreciate you folks forming a committee. My dad's hometown of Vassar, in which we go back about 5 generations, their township or their city picked up the cemetery. You may want to speak to their city manager and looking at existing ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say Wausau?
Vassar.
Vassar.
Anybody else wish to speak? Yes.
Hi, Raymond Catula. Thanks for your time and the opportunity. I'm representing the group in regards to the offer to purchase the property. And I do want to take that to review for them and the attorney. And also would like to ask for a signed copy of that offer. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then we're on to board comments. Does anybody have anything?
Question. On October 9th, the Nonprofit Board Basics Symposium, Warrior Pavilion, $20, lunch included, et cetera. Is there a charge for use of Warrior Pavilion? And if so, who is covering that charge?
I believe it's a $75 charge and the chamber's paying it.
Oh, that's a different number, 75. Is it not usually 100?
Don't quote me then. I can follow up on the charge and
But the
Tammy will know right off the top of her head.
Okay. But the chamber's going to cover it.
That is my understanding.
I think most board members know where I'm going with this. I just want us to be consistent. The chamber's asked for a waiver of the charge before and was turned down by this board, and I just hope we're doing the same thing here, so.
This one has a registration fee.
For participants, right? Yeah. Oh,
Yep, that's gonna apply just like any other event.
okay. Who gets the money? $20 apiece.
Not us, whoever's holding the event.
Okay.
I don't know how they have it structured.
So your point is that if they're going to generate some money for this, perhaps, then they should not be waived. They should have to pay for it. Is it, am I interpreting what you're saying?
That one is, yeah, that's an absolute.
Okay, all right.
I was wondering, at previous meetings, we've discussed the Oak Lane sanitary sewer. Has that been resolved? We were going to look at all options. I thought in the last package you had pretty much given all the options and engineering advice and legal advice. I would like to make sure that I would like to see the residents of that area bring a petition in to do a special assessment for that district and have sewer put in there, but that would be on the residents to do. I was just wondering where we're at on that.
So all options were presented. The residents over there would be way ahead of the game. They have the special assessment district already formatted in there, as well as preliminary costs to be able to do that. The assessor also put in there converted benefit units associated with those properties based on the number of splits that would be possible for each one of those parcels. So the definition of the district, the amount as far as engineering and construction, as well as the split per benefit unit that's already there. You know, in road projects, for example, the most common of what we see for special assessment districts, there's usually a driving champion behind, you know, formulating that petition, knocking on doors, getting the neighbors to on board with that. So all of that is in that package that was delivered at the last meeting.
In addition to what Dave said, also in our special assessment policy, it states in there that the township is responsible for giving the language to the resident to create this special assessment in our own policy.
Do we owe the original person residents or property owners who brought this to us, do we owe them a response? They at this time, do we owe them a response?
All the information was out there.
Okay, I guess to rephrase the question, they requested something of us. Do we have to respond with an affirmative or a negative? I believe they requested to hook up in a specific way. Do we need to respond to that? Is it still left open-ended, or is something required of us?
I thought we were left in the position where we presented the option, and then we need to know how they or their neighborhood are going to proceed from that point. Unless I misunderstood something.
Okay, we briefly discussed this at a work session recently too, and my recollection was that they had requested something specific of us that would require an answer of some sort. So I just want to, that's why I'm asking, do we owe them anything or not? Because I'd like to resolve this, certainly.
I would too. I think the township spent enough time and resources on this to give them the information they need. I would truly would like to see them come forward and request the special assessment district and be all in favor of putting a new sewer line down through that part of our township. But there's a process they have to go through for that, and if it requires us giving the language for the petition, then that's fine, we can do that. But overall, I think we've done just about everything we can do to satisfy this, and I'd like to see the township not putting more time or money into it.
The only other comment I have is Ms. McGuire referenced the special assessment policy. Not to get super detailed or technical, but I'm not sure, I don't think that it's a full-blown policy. It's a procedure written by, I'm not sure that was ever adopted as a policy of the board. It's a procedure, potentially, and we can, the board can debate the distinction between the two, but I just wanted to.
Right. Well, I appreciate that
Yeah.
clarification. But I do remember seeing it written.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not disputing that.
Right. And I don't know if that goes back to my whole board comment last meeting where I asked the question about providing the information in whole to the public or to the resident. And you had stated in your narrative that we received pretty vague or not really reasons why. But I asked the attorney this past Monday, a week ago Monday, well, yeah, after the board meeting, if anybody had asked them that question about if I needed to rescind my motion or for more clarity's sake, if more information should be presented. And I believe he came back and talked to you about it, Dave. I'm not sure. He said he was going back down the hallway.
Yeah, we had presented all the options, and it was reasonable as far as the options that were presented.
That's not what he said to me, but that's okay. He said that more information should have been given or should be provided.
As far as
the reasons why an estimate to hook up to the Sable Road or to the Loud Road is not going to be done. And that's fine as long as we have, reasons.
Why would we go through the time and expense of having a cost done or an estimate done for hooking up to Loud Avenue?
From my perspective, very plainly, because the board made a motion to do exactly that. And whether we all agree with it or not, at this point, it was a unanimous vote, and that was to be debated then, or to be redebated and revoted. But I share a similar question as Ms. McGuire as to the board took action to do exactly, specifically, some things that weren't done. And how does that work? How does following of a specific motion get carried forward?
Or, and that's okay if we're not going to do it, but I don't want vague reasons why. I want to know specifically why that road does not think it's, we're able to do it, to hook up that way, if there's, for whatever reason. But I think that there should have been more information given instead of just basing it on two people that came to a board meeting and a very short sentence about row. And that was it was really no mechanical reason or, I don't know, any type of reason for me. And the attorney agreed, actually. So, and I thought he was coming back down the hallway to tell you that. And I didn't bring it because I really didn't think I was going to need it tonight. But he pointed out a couple things in the narrative that you put and said, no, that more reasons should have been given. And if there is a reason, that's fine, and I can accept that. But that's all I'm looking for.
Well, I believe at one of the work sessions, Catherine Garnham said that there was a problem with connecting at that point, that wouldn't work. I don't remember her exact, she knows way more about this stuff than I do, and she talks in technical terms, but when we ask about that possibility, she said that would not be a good solution, that the other solutions would be a better fit. Because I know she said that specifically, because we asked her of that.
You able to bring up those,
Minutes.
the packet
Which packet?
for the,
I can bring up the June. well,
Aaron,
I
I don't want to sit here and debate this. This is board comment time. I was the only one that asked the attorney about the question that I had last time. So I just am following it up with that. If you want to discuss it with the attorney tomorrow or whenever, then that's fine. But I don't want to take up this people's here's time and sit here and debate for another half an hour about
this
it.
is a meeting of the board.
It's board comment time.
It's a meeting of the board. Does anybody have anything else? All right, then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming out.